This is an introduction to the semi-mystical arts of DotFiles as told by me, Chad Chabot. Who I am, I'm not a Go, exactly. I graduated from Guelph in the CS program about 3-4 years ago. I'm a front-end developer here at Axonify, and as it says, Python was my first love, but I'm a Rubyist at heart. And I do none of those things here because I work probably 85% in JavaScript, which is an interesting sort of beast to have to tame. Okay. Sorry. So DotFiles. What are DotFiles? They are these fancy sort of hidden configuration files that take care of all kinds of different things sort of for you in either in your shell, in different applications, in your OS, all over the place. And if you're using, say, in the case of me, Mac OS X, you can also use DotFiles to set up all the various preference panes instead of having to go through and click on through 25, 30 different menus. You can automate all that away so that it's done and taken care of for you, which is pretty rad. Especially when you trash a machine and need to restore, either from backup or fresh, which happened to me last week. Okay. And so, for example, if you want to see some DotFiles, so here, everything that's highlighted here, the output of this LS, these are all the DotFiles that are resident on my work machine. And you can see there's a lot. And they cover all kinds of things from aliases, bash, different shell functions I have, my git config, SSH, my Vim setup, all over the place. So they're used by probably most of the applications you have on your machine that have any kind of command line interface, or if they're more kind of developer tool, then chances are you'll be able to customize them using DotFiles. So the common examples, your vimrc, inputrc, bash profile, your aliases function. So all these things to provide for, thanks man, terminal customization, and help you kind of be closer to doing the job you want to do and the task you want to do, as opposed to messing with your tools. Getting a bit more natural that way. And so why would you use DotFiles? There are a lot of pragmatic reasons, such as automation of your setup. That's pretty boss, that's key. So with a few keystrokes, a few commands, you can go from sort of brand new virgin machine you just sort of unwrapped and powered on to being ready to go with whatever kind of dev work you have. And it's nice because it's repeatable, it's consistent, and you are able to replicate the sort of setup and environment you want and you have across any and all machines that that you run it on. I really like it for new system setup, especially. Like I said, I just had my personal MacBook die last week, and I've had to get it repaired, and it's going to show up tomorrow. And I know that within about half an hour of sort of powering it on, it will be back to the state it was, and that's without even having to restore from backup, because all my data, of course, is saved elsewhere, and I'm not really concerned about that. But it's all of the system tweaks and customizations that really make your computer yours, and make it a comfortable sort of place. Because I spend about 8 hours a day with this machine, and then my computer at home, probably another 3 or 4, and to have it sort of just the way I like it is super important. There are also a lot of fun reasons. Fun, I guess, depends on your sort of definition. Again, as I said, customization, that's pretty cool. I like the personalization aspect of it as well, because the this is my computer. There are many like it, but this is mine kind of thing. That it will always be the way I expect it to, within reason, and always have that sort of collection of helper functions and little things that I did this one time to help out with a particular workflow that maybe I'd never use it again, but it's nice to collect all of that. And the real impetus or sort of reason behind me being interested in DotFiles and sort of pursuing this path is that I actually didn't know very much about shell scripting, bash scripting in particular. I knew how to put things together using Python or Ruby, but bash seemed some sort of like mystical language that I didn't understand, sort of like Perl, which I still don't understand, but bash I'm a little bit closer on. And so this was a good way to sort of dive in and have to really understand the various language constructs and whatnot. And getting to know bash means that sort of any kind of Linux or Unix machine you're ever going to work with, either remotely or sort of in person, you'll have some measure of control over without having to worry about installing new or different tools and whatnot. And then of course there's a little bit of geek cred if that's your thing, if that matters to you, perhaps in this group, but outside of this group, I mean, who cares, right? It's like my friend Nathan. He's a big car guy. And he'll go on about like customizing his ignition timing and whatnot, and my eyes are sort of rolling over in the back, and I'm thinking, does it start? Do you have a loud stereo? Okay, these are things I understand. Whereas I'm sure he would have a very similar experience when I tried to explain sort of why I stayed up till 2:30 in the morning, just fixing, sort of just tailoring this Bootstrap script to install my DotFiles, just because I learned this new trick and I really want to see if it works. And then it didn't work, and you spent 3 more hours fixing it. Anyway, normals don't understand that, but hopefully maybe you have some affinity with that. So in terms of how-to, pretty straightforward. Your DotFiles project is going to be as big or as little as you want it to be, and it's going to scale up depending on what your needs are, how much time you put into it, and just how much you want to kind of control or automate, and then again, how often you say hose a machine or lose a hard drive and have to move around. That's a pretty big motivator to learn how to not have to go through that horrendous first run process again and again and again. And then you should just jump in. I mean, most of the things that my DotFiles setup does are reversible. They're safe. Some things need a little bit more kind of nuanced understanding of what's going on behind the scenes to clean up properly. For the most part, it's the sort of thing where you can just run it again and again and again, and it won't have terrible outcomes. Sometimes. However, that's the case with mine because I built them up over a year or two. Whereas if you just went in and took someone else's DotFiles project, dumped into your environment, and then ran it and hoped everything was going to be hunky dory, that may, and probably I can guarantee you won't be the case, because there'll be certain tweaks and certain things that he or she will have done based on their particular needs or a dependency that they forgot to include as part of their DotFiles bootstrap, but you didn't know about that, and then suddenly your computer's unusable. Or maybe they're kind of I don't know. Maybe they're kind of a jerk and did something funny alias ls to segfault error kind of thing. So there you try and use something innocuous, and then they're just messing with you. Most people aren't going to do that, I don't think. Maybe Phil, I don't know. But in terms of where to start, start with shell customization. So if that's a matter of changing around your prompt, changing around what is shown, if you're a Git user, show the particular branch you're on, show the status of the branch. That's a really handy thing. As I said, for OS 10, there are probably 200 system preferences that I have set up tweaked for how to turn on different energy saver preferences, how to turn on the screensaver, how to what the settings for like the Wi-Fi networks and just all kinds of things, which I'm going to show you later. And then the last one here, I think is pretty key and a really important part of new machine setup, because whenever you go from either a dead machine to a new machine, or from let's say moving between companies, and there's certain things that you're used to in that environment that you want to bring forward, rather than have to kind of make a checklist of what do I have installed here, do I have a license for this, do I have where did it come from, what version is it on, kind of tracking all of those sorts of things. You can automate that and keep that as part of this DotFile system, so that it is it's just done for you. You don't have to think about it until such time as your tools change, your needs change. In which case, then you'll change your DotFiles, because that's the point, is that they're not static. They'll evolve over time with you. And in this case, yeah. So if you're in a Mac, you might use Homebrew to install some system utilities. Maybe you want to use Brew Cask if you have particular like OS 10 native like GUI applications. You can pull all those. Or if you're on Linux, you can run apt-get or similar. I guess that's Ubuntu in particular. And then in terms of what's next for me, or is extending my DotFiles to include common Ruby gems I use, Python modules, things of that sort, to make work in in those technologies easier. And this is pretty neat too as well, because all of your Git setup is saved in a DotFile as well. So certain things, there's two things in particular that I have custom here for my work machine that I don't know anyone else uses. Some people have commented on it, sort of admiringly. Some people have said, "Quit doing that. You're clogging up the commit messages." But I have a custom commit message, so that every time I want to make a commit, it gives me sort of four sections. It's like, what did you change? Why did you change it? What are the possible side effects, and then what issue is this related to? So there's a nice framework for me whenever I am going to make a commit to the Git repo, that it's not simply dash off a one-liner that makes sense to me, or maybe it doesn't make sense to me, but just gets it out of the way, because committing is sometimes not the most fun part of your day and workflow. But yeah, as I said, they will change as your needs change. So in terms of 4 really interesting or really useful links, you can see my personal DotFiles, which I'm going to demonstrate to you, as much fun and as exciting as that may or may not be. The second one, Matt Hallman's DotFiles, are probably one of, if not the most intense sort of like system setup scripts that I've seen. Maybe only Paul Irish's DotFile setup sort of rivals Hallman's, and then, pardon me, Zach Hallman, that's his name, not Matt. And then yeah, there's a blog post there too where Zach Hallman sort of talks about what DotFiles are about, and the whole idea of sharing and sort of taking hints and bits and pieces from other people and kind of bringing it together to have it make sense for yourself. And then if you want to ignore all the other links, that's fine. You can just go to dotfiles.github.io, and the other 2 are going to be linked from there, except for mine, because I'm not a big deal in this world, which is totally fine. And that, I think, covers the things I want to talk about. But I'm gonna show you mine and sort of walk you through how it works, why it works that way, and maybe that will be interesting to all of you, or some of you as well. Okay. So wait. This is what I want to show you. That may be better. Okay, so I have this is my .files project here. I've got what is that, like 15 different files in here for a bunch of different things. Some are not actually being used as part of the .file system, like that test.coffee. That's something I'm going to show you a customization I did. But mine gets broken up into basically four kind of categories or sections. The first one is my shell. The second one is going to be my Vim setup. Third is my OS 10 setup, and then fourth, which is really minimal and it's still growing, is customizations I have to my Ruby Ruby system that I work for. But that is interesting. There we go. Okay. So hey, this is Bash. Hooray, lovely. So mine, the most recent version I set up so that there's actually sort of 4 things you can do. You can install everything, update everything. You can just update the .files, update the OS 10 system prefs, or update OS 10 applications. And I did that because as my system was sort of growing and growing and growing, there were things that I didn't need to do every time, such as reinstall all of my Vim prefs. But there were things that I definitely needed to do, such as update any applications I was installing via Homebrew, which is a wicked awesome tool. If you're using OS 10 and you don't know what Homebrew is, let's talk. We should fix that and let you know how it goes. Pardon me, how that works. But in terms of what happens, what do you want to do? So let's go update OS application. So it'll go through and it's going to check for things that are installed or not installed. So in this case, I've got Brewcask installed. I've got Silver Searcher Tree, which is a really neat file tree traversal tool from the command line, and HTTPy, which is kind of like curl but way more humane. And I guess I didn't install VLC on this machine, so you actually get to see something happen, which is not as exciting as it otherwise would be. And the Wi-Fi is kind of slow, I guess. Please make sure that's the only one that has to install. Alright, well, we'll just end that anyway. Again, this is where I got to actually finally learn about some Bash stuff. And you'll see here that I prepared to set this up for Linux, but I haven't because it hasn't been a real thing for me. Probably not a big part of my usage. And as far as Vim sort of setup, loading all my plugins and whatnot. But yeah, as far as these details, like it's interesting to me and maybe interesting to some of you, but we can talk about that later after the fact, I guess. But yeah, so that kind of that covers the official parts of what I want to talk about when it comes to .files. So I guess the next question would be does anyone actually do this for their own system? Is this something you're familiar with? Nods, rad. Okay, cool. Okay, and how is it that you sort of came about this? Why do you bother with the extra work of sort of having a setup script?
I guess all apps typically have configuration, and just like a backup data, I would back up the configuration.
Yeah.
So for me, it's mainly Bash scripts, aliases, and stuff that I'm accustomed to using.
Yeah.
I think it's the pain of going to help someone else on another machine and not being able to do anything because they don't have anything set up, and you're just, you hate your life.
Right. Well, it's so that there's also an aspect of it. So at Accentify, we have we have a much slimmer set of install files and default files that we use as part of the like on a per project basis. And so that way, like Phil was saying, so if I'm having an issue, you know, there's a certain set of commands and a certain set of behaviors that you know, Phil's used to having happen on his machine, and so he knows that if he comes over to my machine, that at least those things are going to be there, so it's consistent across the projects we're working on that we both work on, and then maybe also the opportunity for, you know, him to say, hey, I see you're doing this thing that is not so efficient, or like I've got this other way to do it, which has been really helpful for me. So let me show you, which is all a part of that you know, sort of DotFiles meant to be shared, meant to be forked, because I knew nothing about how to do it before. I totally ripped off someone else's stuff and caused a bunch of problems, and then you know, sort of deleted as much as I could to get to the sort of the minimal part where it actually did something useful for me. Yeah. So DotFiles, there we go.